Total War Warhammer 2 is a gorgeous game. It's filled with some of the best graphics I've personally seen for any Warhammer game, sans maybe the Dawn of War series, but that is a whole different bag within and of itself. So today I want to kind of talk about how you can make your experience in Total War Warhammer 2 even more enjoyable. I'm going to give you guys my top picks for the mods that I use anytime I'm doing a campaign. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, 90-95% of the mods on this list are geared solely towards making the game look better, the game feel a little bit more fluid, or just as an overall better presentation. I will have a section at the end of this video for mods that are a little bit more total overhaul related, you know, stuff like the Radius mod, Steel Faith, so on and so forth. So we're going to just jump in through my list here real quick. None of these are going to be in any particular order outside of maybe their usefulness, maybe, or like where they would occur when you're in your current playthrough. But let's just kind of dive into this list. It should be a quick and dirty one. You will see the link to these mods in the description. So if you want to pick any of them up or at least test them out, you can go ahead and find them in the description below. Let's get diving on this list. So our first mod, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this right now or not, but I've booted the game up. You can see that it's a black screen right now. It's loading in. It's going through its typical kind of paces. Now, anytime you boot up Total War Warhammer 2, you have to sit through all of the Creative Assembly icons, the Sega icons, everything until it goes eventually into the actual intro screen. As you can see, this instead, it just went directly to the front of the menu. So this is called the intro skip mod. It's pretty simple, but I think it's just a great way to kind of get right into the game immediately. Personally, when I start the game up, I'll walk away real quick, and then come back, and I'd rather just go right to the main screen rather than me having to skip through some other menus and so on and so forth. Now, having booted up a campaign, you can clearly see I've got quite a few mods running, but we will run through them one at a time. Now, the big one I want to talk about is probably the most annoying thing when starting up a new campaign, and that is the camera settings. Now, the camera settings, of course, I'm talking about when you click the camera setting button, you can go over here to your faction, individual factions, allied, enemy, and neutral factions. You can, of course, then set their animation speed. I, as default, like to have pretty much everything off, minus my enemy factions. I want to see where their lords move. So what I actually have is it's a two-part mod. You need the modding framework to begin with, the UI modding framework, and then you also need the save camera settings mod. You'll notice I've got three little ditties here. So if I press this button, okay, this is what it's going to normally look like when you load in a game. You're going to have your enemy factions set to medium on both their lords and heroes, and animation speed set to normal as well. And this is going to be the same thing across everything. So what I like to do is load user camera settings. And these are my default ones. So I never have to press this button and configure these. Every single time I start a game, it's just there and ready for me to go. Now, this next mod is also a pretty self-evident one, but I have a mod called Immersive Battle Banners. Now, this has kind of come and gone through a bunch of different names as the creator, Den, has stepped back and forth from the Total War Warhammer 2 modding community. He has now fully stepped away from modding, and it has been taken up in his name and is still being continued. So this is the updated Immersive Battle Banners, and these just add new kind of fun, loreful battle banners for every single faction in the game. On the actual menu here, you'll see that there'll be their typical actual flag, but if I were to go over to their respective nation, I don't think I can right now, we will see their actual new and updated flag as per this mod. And I think a lot of them are really fun, and this extends to the battle map. I find it can be, depending on what faction you're playing, a little hard to determine what unit type you're controlling, but I think as a whole it kind of translates very well to the game, and you get a lot of really fun, interesting battle banners that make themselves into Total War Warhammer 2. Our next mod, it seems like it wouldn't be too big, especially at this level of the game. This is turn 1, but I have a trio of mods activated. The Cultural Settlement Skins Larger Buildings mod and the Cultural Settlement Skins Building mod. And that will allow for your minor settlements to look kind of like your major settlements were. So it just makes everything look a little bit cooler. When you take a look across the map, you can see these are a little bit larger buildings, look a little bit cooler like I was saying. Then the third one we have is GCCM's Unique Faction Capitals. Now, this is Lothern. It looks pretty small, pretty unassuming, but if I were to build this up to this level, like right now, if I were able to instantly construct that, then the result would be this actually growing on the map. By the time that it's completely maxed out, I think like Lothern comes out to this portion of the map, and it extends like all the way over to like, you can just barely see this little open area right here. So it allows you to have really unique faction capitals. We can't see Gain Vale, but Gain Vale has a really cool faction capital as well. Every single major capital faction, faction capital, just looks a lot more immersive and cool, and it looks like it's got a little bit more gravitas, and that's what I really wanted. Is I wanted these big, huge landmarks of the Warhammer world to feel imposing, and I think that this mod really pulls that off very well. Since we're on the subject of talking about the settlements, the next one I have is a very simple one. And honestly, it doesn't add anything to the game. I just think it makes things a little bit more fluid and tells a better tale when it comes to building out your provinces. And it's the Building Progressions mod. And you can see this right over here, especially in the infrastructure category. You can see that each level of these progresses up the icon. It gets decorative, ornate as it gets more and more elaborate. Elven Gardens, it gets a little Pegasus in there. Taking a look over here at the homestead, I believe the estate and the Elven Fairground, this is the max level one, what it actually looks like if it were to not have this mod. But instead you can see a progression from Craftsman to Artisan to Fairground. I really like this because it's such a small little touch that I think Creative Assembly kind of missed, that I think, like I said, adds a lot to the game. Same thing here, right? We take a look at the militia camp. Well, this is indicative of what you're going to be getting. It's a little bit indicative because you're getting spearmen, you're getting archers. Oh, well, now I'm getting the rally field, and now I'm going to get access to my Lothern Sea Guard. Then I can actually see the shield of the Lothern Sea Guard coming on here, because now I get Lothern Sea Guard with shields. I just think, like I said, it tells a better story. It makes the building out of your province look a little bit more decorative and fun, and you can just kind of tell at a glance what stage or level your icons are at as you progress through your campaign, because you'll just kind of get associated with what levels and what icons look like what. But I think it's a very simple mod, but a very good one nonetheless. Another very simple mod that really kind of makes the game look a lot more dynamic and less flat is this one you see before you, Darker and Deeper Sea. The typical sea is a little bit more flat. It's just kind of a sheen of grayish blue. This has a lot more darker blues and purples, and you can kind of see the depth difference as you kind of move around the map. And it's just something that I overall enjoy a lot more when I'm taking a look at a faction that is a little bit less landlocked, especially if you're playing someone like the Vampire Coast, where you spend a lot of time on the open seas. Same thing with Tomb Kings as you go to look out for your Books of Nagash. This will make it so that you're not just looking at the same color palette of sea no matter where you are on the map. As we jump into a battle here, we can see some of the other mods I've got activated. So jumping in here, wait for these guys to actually clash. One I actually have is called Less Blood, Less Gore. Now you might be thinking to yourself, this is Total War Warhammer. Why would I want to do that? Why would I want less blood? Or why would I want less gore? Well, the big problem is that right now, if you were to just kind of fight through a battle normally, your unit would get just like overly saturated in blood, especially single entity targets. If I can actually get one involved in combat, I'll show you exactly what that looks like. Let's grab him and send him right here. But if I take a look over at Tyrion, he's got some blood on him, and it's a little bit more indicative of him actually in like a fight. That was an awesome sync kill. It's him indicative of being in an actual fight. Even taking a look over here at the rest of the spearmen, you can see they've had a little bit of action going on, and they're not just like coated from head to foot in gore for just getting like one hit point taken away from them. The less blood, less gore makes it look like they actually are in war and fighting and conflict. It just makes it a little bit more dynamic and interesting, rather than just being like, oh, I've killed someone with a spear and now I'm profusely covered in blood because I must have struck the femoral artery in their leg and it's spraying all over me at a high velocity. No, that doesn't happen. So it just makes things look a little bit more, I guess you could say, just a little more kept in track. Again, makes a good narrative. Now, some of the other mods I have are Better Camera Mod. Yes, it allows me to do this, but it also allows me to really get close and get these really interesting shots. So really just enjoy. Part of the reason I enjoy playing Total War Warhammer 2 so much is that I love getting this close to the combat and having a good time. In addition, we have the alternative lighting mod, which you don't really see going into full effect here. You can kind of see it as we see the sun comes from this direction, and it kind of casts a drearier shadow over here. This looks like this might be like a little bit of a late afternoon, early battle going on, so you get a better idea of of the light direction, especially if there's a foggy map or a map with a lot of what's called, God rays or sun rays. You can see those a lot more evident with the alternative lighting mod. In addition, we have the fixed Skydome mod, which actually renders the sun and the moon, something that the Creative Assembly doesn't do. And what I mean sun and moon, I mean the actual light source itself. So you can see here that, yeah, clearly there's no sun there, but there is over here. So these are just little tiny tweaks that I think make the game a lot more beautiful. And one other one that we've got here is Dryrain's Reskin mod. I really can't stress this one enough. All of Dryrain's Reskin mods are beautiful. I don't think there's much to really show with the High Elf Archers. There never was to begin with. So as you take a look at, say, the Spearmen, you can see that there is a variety as you look through in ways that really differ from the base game. It's less evident with the High Elves, I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's way more evident when you take a look at the Empire. Taking a look especially at Heinrich Kemmler's version of his undead. All of his undead have a Bretonnian vibe to themselves because, he's trouncing through Bretonia as he raises things from the dead. So Dryrain's Reskin mod really allows for a lot more of a thematic approach to your armies and a lot more flavor and color added into them. I mean, just taking a look here at the Dark Elves, which again are a pretty unanimous sea of purple, gold, and dark blues and blacks, but you just get some variety from the helmets. You get variety in the way that all their individual armors look. I just really enjoy this mod. And again, it's not as evident on the Elves, and this also extends to any generic lord or hero, making them look very diverse and different. Now, one last thing too I want to just mention, because I've got it. It's not something I really even recommend. I downloaded it to see what it was like, but I've got see all the High Elf hair? They've got different color hair. I wanted to see what it was like. I don't think it's overly necessary, but you play a lot of High Elves and you want to get a little diversity in the back. You can see that guy's got a ponytail. This guy's got a big old mane of bright blonde hair. This one's got more of a dirty blonde. It's more of a me thing. This guy doesn't even have any hair popping out. So if you like that kind of nuanced stuff, have at it. But the one last thing I want to show you on the battle map is the improved balance bar. It takes away a lot of the UI elements around this, so it's a little bit more evident to see. It makes it so it's a little bit more clear where the balance of power is. Currently, I can obviously tell the balance of power is in my favor, but I think this plays a little bit better when you're, say, taking a look at multiplayer battles. But again, oh, and lastly, the Immersive Battle banners. This is them on the battle map. Again, I can really see what exactly is an archer. I can see what a siege engine is. I know what the hell that is. I can see all these spearmen. So that's just, again, to give you a better idea of how the Immersive Battle Banners mod extends to the battlefield itself. Probably the most useful mod as far as a functionality goes on this list is the Solved Dials of the Old Ones mod. This makes it so this actual center dial lines up properly, and you can actually discern what the hell this dial of the Old Ones is actually pointing at. So I see these three icons, I see these three icons here, we're going to go ahead and click it, and boom, puzzle succeeded. So while that is a very simple mod, it completely makes that puzzle solvable without having to bring up Photoshop, go into the actual screenshot itself, rotate that center dial, and hopefully think you get it lined up properly. Because those little icons on the outside sometimes don't really match up 100%. Hopefully this one will make the dial of the Old Ones a lot easier for you to deal with. Our last three mods are pretty easy to kind of go through, and they actually take place mainly with the end turn. One mod that we of course don't of that list is the 2 points per level mod. This will simply add 2 points to any time you get a level on your Lord. I thought Tyrion got a level, but he didn't, so that messed up this plan. But simply just makes it a lot easier to level up Lords, especially hybrid casters, such as Malekith and the such, that have their offensive line as well as their spell line. This allows you to really kind of fill out their tree pretty easily. But I'm going to go ahead and press the end turn button here and take a look at the top where you see all the banners of the factions during the end turn. Now, I'm saying look because this is going to go very quickly, just because of the nature of where we're at in the game. But you're going to notice two buttons, and we're going to talk about them real quick. So you'll see this is the fast forward button. This mod makes it so it's always fast forwarded, and this button is decline all diplomacy. By clicking it, I make sure that anytime I click the end turn button, I will not deal with any diplomatic relations from any faction. It'll quickly go through the menu as if they were to offer me, hey, let's offer you a non-aggression pact or a a trade agreement, anything like that, and it'll automatically decline. So I can press the end turn button and walk away from the computer and come back, and it won't have stopped in the middle of a diplomatic relation. This is just kind of nice for a natural pacing if you're trying to get a break in between any kind of big turns, or while you're trying to kind of assemble your armies, stuff like that. I think it makes for a lot better of a fluid end turn time, especially if you have a slower processor and you're playing, say, Mortal Empires, and that end turn time just drags on. Hopefully you enjoyed that little tidbit there. Before we bring this video to a close, there's one last mod I want to talk about, and it's the Legendary Lord Lore mod. And what this essentially does is add really fun, flavorful bits of text on the right side that kind of appear like events at the beginning of every turn. There's certain interactions that need to happen, and they require your Legendary Lord to either encounter another rival Legendary Lord, say Tyrion and Malekith, or arrive at a place that's relevant to their history, say Snikch encountering Lothern and the whole burning of the harbors and ports of Lothern. Another instance would be when you produce any kind of specific unique building that is otherwise pretty important to the lore. Now, as a channel, of course, dedicated to lore, I feel like this is a must include for my playthroughs. It really adds a nice little bit of flavor, gives you some good background on the Legendary Lord you're playing, or any of the other unique buildings you build. With that being said, that concludes our, I guess you could say, my master list of mods that I really enjoy playing with. Again, these are mods that are definitely a lot more on the graphical scale, things that improve the overall gameplay of the game. I don't do a ton of overhaul mods. Now, there are a lot of really good overhaul mods, and I personally have not really played much of any of them. The only ones I've really played in the recent times is Kataf's Southern Realm mod, so I feel like I must give a shout out to Kataf and all of his many mods. He covers a lot of different, really interesting ways to add things to the game in a rather balanced fashion, and I think that's one thing I worry so much about when it comes to those overhaul mods, is adding stuff to the game can very much imbalance the game, because it is a very intricate game. So hats off to Kataf on that for making a mod that doesn't really break the game in any way, shape, or form. Well, a little bit, but not really. Also, you have to use Mixer's Unlocker to get that, and Mixu does a ton of Legendary Lord mods, a ton of unlocking of factions, so you can play things like Karak Zorn, things you wouldn't normally be able to play. So a huge shout out to Mixu. In addition, you have the Steel Faith overhaul mods, which I've personally never touched, but I've heard that they're amazing. The Radius mod, which is, again, another one I've never touched, but I've heard is amazing. I think there's another one that's called like Boys Will Be Boys, closer to the tabletop. Again, this is just another one that I recommend from just kind of word of mouth. I've not tried any of these complete overhauls of Total War Warhammer, but I feel like in a video dedicated to modding the game out, it's at least worth throwing their name into the hat so you guys can go investigate them if you're looking for that level of total overhaul of Total War Warhammer 2. Hopefully you enjoyed this video here today, and it gave you a good idea of some mods that you either have already or mods that you want to start trying out, or at least branching into. Things that are a little bit of a dip into the modding of Total War Warhammer 2 without making the game an unrecognizable mess, like when you're playing Skyrim and all of a sudden you're now playing an anime body pillow rather than an actual character. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that action. Comment below with your favorite mods. I'm sure the community would love to see what you are playing with right now, even if it includes turning Tyrion into an anime body pillow. But again, as always, have a good one and take care.